From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, into every climate and conflict imaginable, the United States Marines remain our nation's elite fighting force for their ability to operate in the harshest of environments. Today's guest will talk about what it takes to be called one of the few and the proud. The Humanities Mass Communication Department at Norwalk Community College presents Person to Person with your host, Elena Rusnick, directed by Michael Long.
Thank you for joining us for today's edition of Person to Person, the show that gives you an inside look at the lives of some very interesting people. Our guest today is a former U.S. Marine who served in the infantry in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Today he will be sharing with us what it was like to have served in the military and his experiences overseas. We'd like you to meet today's guest, Timothy Long. Hello, Timothy.
Hello.
So Timothy, I know that joining military is a big decision. What made you want to join?
Joining the military has kind of been a family tradition in my family. Both my older brothers are Marines, my father's a Marines. There's been a lot of military personnel in my family over the years. As you can see from the video, that's my brother Dave and Mike. There's my brother Dave and Mike and my father, who are all Marines. But it's just something we've always done, flocked to. We've been doing it for 100 years, 200 years. I'm not exactly sure how far it goes back, but it's always been kind of a tradition in my family.
Okay, what was your job in the military and what did it require you to do?
I was a machine gunner. Basically my job entailed understanding how machine guns work, how to effectively employ them in combat situations, basically understanding everything about that piece of equipment at any given time and being able to use it effectively.
I know you were deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. Where in the country were you sent, and what can you tell us about that area?
I was deployed to Marja, Afghanistan. It's in the Helmand province. It's in southern Afghanistan, which is weird. Afghanistan's really divided between north and south by the language they speak. They speak more Farsi and Dari in the north, and they speak Pashto in the south. It's weird to see those people because, I mean, the Farsi and Dari people really don't like the Pashto-speaking people, and it's just a weird part of the country. Marja was mainly a farming community, and they grew poppy there. That's the main reason the military was sent in there.
2010 is considered the most violent year of the war in Afghanistan, and you were deployed to one of the most dangerous parts in the country. Can you please tell us how long were you in the country before you saw combat?
I was there about a week before I got into my first firefight. It was pretty intense. I mean, a week later I was in the United States, and next thing I know I'm in Afghanistan getting shot at by insurgents. So
how often after that were you on combat?
It was about 3 or 4 more months of almost every single day fighting. It gradually slowed down as the winter came in, and I think most of the insurgents went home or they ran out of bullets. I'm not quite sure why they stopped shooting at us, but it definitely slowed down when the winter came around.
It looks like you were carrying a lot of equipment. What kind of things did you carry, and how much did it all weigh?
Every Marine's loadout's different depending on what their job is and what they're trying to accomplish. I personally I had a flak jacket. Every Marine gets a flak jacket, and they roughly wear about 55 pounds. I also was the machine gunner for my squad. I carried a machine gun that weighed about 30 pounds. The ammunition for the machine gun, I carried about 500 rounds. That was another 20, 30 pounds. And then everyone carried like miscellaneous things, like a notepad, a pen, stuff that doesn't weigh a lot, but when you're carrying that much weight, it really brings you down, as they say. I also carried flares, It really depended on your loadout and the type of equipment you had. Some people had M16s and they had to carry the M16 ammo. Some people had 9mm pistols. They carried that with the ammunition for that. Some people carried hand grenades. It's hard to say what everyone's given loadout was. Mine was about probably somewhere in a range of 120 pounds.
Okay. I know it can get pretty hot in the desert. How hot did it get while you were there, and how did that affect you?
The temperatures in Afghanistan in the summertime can get up to 120 to 140 degrees. It definitely slows you down because of the intense heat and you're carrying all that equipment. It's definitely very harsh and rough on you. But it's amazing to see that temperature, because after you're there for a week, it doesn't, you start to get used to it, acclimatized to it. But you literally watch bottled water boil in the sun. I saw a porta potty melting just from sitting out in the seat. The heat is just slowly melting to the ground. I mean, pretty astonishing things you would never expect to see on Earth,
In the videos, it looks like you travel mostly on foot. How far did you travel every day and overall?
Every day is different when you're there. But on average, I'd have to say traveled anywhere from 5 kilometers to 8 kilometers a day. That's roughly 3 to 4 miles a day. But it could go up. I mean, if you're in a firefight and you have to chase down the enemies, you could end up chasing them for 6, 7 miles. It's pretty rough. I mean, the distance you cover, I think me and my squad alone covered somewhere in the range of 350 miles in the course of our 7-month deployment.
I know that a big part of the mission in Afghanistan involved working with local security forces. What did you think of the Afghan army that you worked with?
It really was a toss-up between who you were assigned that week. Sometimes you got really good squads of Afghan army, and other times you didn't get so good of a squad of Afghan army. It really depended on their training and how dedicated they were to being in their military and trying to make a difference in their country. Some people were just there from, they just wanted to be in the army for a paycheck. Other people were there to actually try to change their country for the better and, work with the U.S. forces and try to make a difference in their country. They also, I mean, it's different seeing their culture and living with them. It's really weird seeing another culture like that, and especially one so different from American culture or other cultures you might see around the world. So I mean, it was a definitely interesting experience working with them.
This all sounds like a very life-changing experience. What have you taken away from your time being in the military and overseas?
The biggest thing I've taken away from being in the military is your attitude. The Marine Corps has a way of coming in and basically ripping out your foundation and putting a new, stronger one in, making you a better person at your core. I mean, I definitely learned a lot. It was, the biggest thing I took away from it was my attitude and, how I move and, my ambition I have today. It teaches you a lot. It's a very interesting experience overall because you meet at least one person from every single state in America, and going to a different state in America could be like going to a different country anywhere else. So I mean, it's definitely, you learned a lot and you meet a lot of interesting people, and it's definitely a life-changing experience.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Today we got to meet a combat veteran who shared with us his experiences during the Afghan War and gave us an idea of what it takes to be a U.S. Marine. We'd like to thank Timothy for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Coming up next on Person to Person, we will meet a person who is an aspiring hip-hop artist from Norwell, Connecticut. Thank you and good day.
This has been Person to Person with your host, Elena Rusnick. Directed by Michael Long. Person to Person is a Norwalk Community College student production.